Well, I'm going to turn the evening over to Wayne BA. Wayne BA is Michigan State School of Planning, Design, and Construction, and he is the director of the SBEI project, which is Sustainable Built Environment Initiative. And that's what this is all about tonight. And Wayne has with him June2019, who is a nationally known landscape architect, and two young ladies in the back, Elena and Amal, and they are here tonight to show you what some possibilities and what possibilities for our community are. And so Wayne's coming right up.
Thanks, Roseanne, and thanks everybody for coming out. We ended up picking the one day in 2 months where it's not raining, right?
Yeah.
So, which that just shows the level of enthusiasm here and for all you being here this evening. So thank all of you for coming out for this evening. And just curious, how many of you were here for our kickoff meeting in February? Okay, we had a lot of folks, so a lot of returners. Okay, that's good. Either we did well, or you really have a few things more to tell us. And those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. We're gonna be going through a little bit of a recap as to where we've been up to this point. So tonight's a little bit different, perhaps, than some other meetings that you've attended. We're gonna have you sit here for a moment. We're going to go through about a half an hour presentation, just to kind of orient you to what's going on here. But then we're going to have you get up and actually, and we had some overachievers in the room that already put some comments on those images. We want all of you to be able to have an opportunity to reflect and comment. So I'll explain what we're trying to do there. So you've already accomplished something tonight. The white cards, this was kind of your meal ticket. We asked you for that first question about imagine a vibrant street you have visited on your index card, and please describe in one word or phrase what made that place unique. So just randomly grabbing a few of them here. We have charming, busy, colorful, bright, historic, art, vibrant, clean, natural, impeccable, and people and more people. So there's many more, but we'd like you to kind of get that to help you get oriented to tonight about what it is that what we're trying to do. First of all, we're going to take you through the feedback from the meeting back in February. And those of you that raised your hands, you were at the table. There was a lot of good discussion. We reported out a lot of those. Those were words. So what we're going to be using tonight is the talent from our designers, and June2019 will be coming up here in a moment to describe some of the before and after images that we had, and our design team in terms of that's put these together. We're trying to take those words and put them into some images now, so that when you just describe, small town character, well, what does that look like? Let us know if some of the images that we have, if that's exactly on point or not. So that's part of what we're trying to do here tonight. But you can't have an effort like this without having a lot of individuals. And as Roseanne mentioned, on the tables, there's a lot of the sponsors that have made this happen. So thank you for all the sponsors, individuals, and groups that have made this effort possible. And Roseanne mentioned this is part of a process. We worked with over 100 communities around the state over nearly 2 decades now of similar type of processes. So we're trying to take the ideas that you have and put it into some graphic imaging. That's one of the main components here. Now, some of you may say, well, gosh, how much is this all going to cost, and when's it going to be built? This is, building off of your master plan work and trying to get some of these ideas that you've had in some of your work into some imaging so that it can move forward with either private or public a type of investment and resources in moving forward. So Our job tonight is not to design a site necessarily, it's to identify some of those opportunities that could exist with some of the ideas that you shared with us at the first meeting. So our scope is really what we've been called the uptown, downtown, the Edwardsburg, the township, and the village area. We focused in on a few areas as examples that we will highlight here in a moment. But that's really the goal, not to necessarily redesign the whole community, the whole Edwardsburg area, but to identify a few of the sites and with some imaging, be able to demonstrate what that might look like. So just to kind of recap, back in February, we had that community visioning meeting. Tonight, we're going to really be doing that design input, further refining your thoughts. We're going to summarize that and do some additional revisions with design and have that in a final meeting. That'll come later in probably early fall at this point, and then move into the implementation stage. So let me just recap some of the things that we heard in that first meeting. We had a really good turnout, and a couple of the things that, if you recall, that we did is we asked to really record some of your thoughts around what you're proud and sorry about. But we started out with that one word similar tonight. Describe one word description of the area as it exists now, and one as you want to see it in the future. So as it exists now and in the future. So we put together a word cloud. In that word cloud for as it exists now, I won't read that to you. These were, if the bigger the word is, that's the more times that we heard that. Okay. So, and again, you know, a lot of these things we're here to begin to address. And what we heard Edwardsburg in the future, the one word. So you can see some of the contrast there with this word cloud. Looked like welcoming, exciting, business, bustling, active, vibrant were all some of the top words that we heard in terms of moving forward. So part of the challenge here tonight is to take these words that we had and move them into some of the imaging. So let me just orient a little bit about how we're gonna go ahead and do this. But I'll summarize both the full, proud, and sorry from the first meeting. So that first question that we asked, what are you proud about this area? And we captured those. Certainly the school, sports complex, hometown field, and museum. There's a lot to be proud of. We like to build off of that because sometimes if you've lived here your whole life, you might not necessarily acknowledge how important some of these things that perhaps you take for granted that are here. So that's for us, it's really helpful for us to build off of what exists. So these are some of the main assets that you mentioned that you're proud about. The sorry aspects, everything from some of the vacancies and appearance issues, some of that loss of businesses. Many of you mentioned about the lack of grocery, et cetera. So these are some of the opportunities that we can begin to build on. And then we asked that question, if you're in a hot air balloon looking down 15 years from now, what would you like this area to look like? And that's really the opportunity for you to envision what possibly could be. And that's why we like to start off tonight with thinking about some of the places that you've been, some of the places you've seen perhaps on TV or in movies, where it had something about that place, that street, that stuck with you. And so those are some of the items that we're trying to capture here and try to build on. So those are some of the key components, and it's built around this term, fancy term that sometime in design and planning we call placemaking. How many of you have heard of that term before that we've used, placemaking? A few of you. And it's been used at the state level quite a bit in many areas in Michigan and throughout the country. But I like to describe it using the analogy of a play. Has anybody been to a concert or an outdoor venue here in the past, right? So if you go to a play, you know, there's a couple of key components that make it all work, right? First is the actual stage. That's the form. You have to have the right setting for that. And so in placemaking, a lot of what we're talking about tonight and through these images is the actual form. How do these places look? What are some of the critical elements? What's the landscaping, the building facade, the streetscape? You know, all these different components. That's the form. And then the other part that makes the play work is the actual play itself, right? The activity. Many of you have mentioned at the last meeting about places that are lively, vibrant. That's having people and activity taking place. So for a play to be effective, it's all that activity, right? And then finally, the last part is the emotional response. If you've gone to a great show and it leaves you with a certain feeling, right? That's the emotional response. And so some of those special places that you mentioned to us, you know, on these white cards tonight, they stuck with you, and that had that emotional response. And so we're trying to do that in little ways with some of the design improvements, and perhaps in big ways with some of the redevelopment opportunities. Okay, so we want you to be thinking about this as you're going through with your comments here tonight. So now these themes and design considerations. What we heard from the first meeting, to kind of break it down into a few categories, is this idea of placemaking. How can we build off of that, having these design practices emphasizing unique features. Also the streetscape, the area where you're walking, everything from having areas that are meant for people, not necessarily cars, and traffic safety, improving the walkability. Another theme was this idea of just visually appealing, the aesthetics. How can you build off of that? New uses of some of the current abandoned or underutilized properties, adding more green space, proactive screening practices. So these were some of the ideas that we heard at the first meeting. And then connectivity. How are these areas not only serving individually, but how are they connected to one another? So, you know, building off of all of those, we tried to take those words, those literally hundreds of words, and our talented staff here, Elena and Aman, and some other students that we have, help pull these ideas together. And then what you see here are some images, and I'll just explain here in a moment what we're trying to do. So there's two identical sets of images on both sides of the room, okay? To my right is the images that start here along the wall, and they start here. So two similar sets. So if you've gone through one set, unless you want to read the other comments, they're identical. The first set of images, okay, until you get to the last series of images, are these what we call character images. We tried to take the words that we heard and identify some images that capture those words. Now, these aren't necessarily design features that we're recommending for Edwardsburg, okay? I want to emphasize that, but it gives you a menu of some of the ideas under that particular title. So we really need you to comment on your sticky notes, post-it notes, what you liked or didn't like about some of those particular images. And some of you are very thoughtful as well, and we want you on the green sheets while we're going through this presentation, all right, and before you leave here tonight, to fill this out. This is your exit ticket. What do you like about the designs presented today? Was there anything about the designs presented today that concerned you? And what improvements, additions would you like to see regarding the designs presented here today? So using the forms and the sticky notes, we really need you to fill that out. If we just had a good meal and a good conversation, that's great, but we need your comments so that we can make the refinements in going forward, okay? So that's where I've asked our Elena and Amon in particular, as we're going around, to make sure that you're putting those comments up. So let me go through these character images. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, but on these categories that we identified, we've identified some of these images, and I'll just capture some of the thoughts here. So people and activity. This is an open area, so they're indoor and outdoor are somehow seamless. This idea of vibrant streetscapes, lots of people. You have some seating that takes place in outdoor cafe areas. There's opportunities for different seating, whether it's unique and design oriented. The seating is art in and of itself. This opportunity where there's flowers and trees that are there. Lots of places for people to sit and people watch. That's one of the favorite pastimes when we talk about placemaking in particular. And having these different seating options. That helps, thank you. And again, we're not saying that we need to look like a big city. What we want you to focus on here are some of the wayfinding, local character. Are there signs and areas about the local character in the area here around some design features that can allow you to identify the local history as well as be aesthetically pleasing. And some of the areas that are pretty common to be thinking about, some of these pavement treatments, whether we're talking about the green space, we heard a lot about that, unique shops, the mix of uses, architecture, rooftop experiences. These are all different things that as you go and look at a downtown in an area, some of you identified some of these in your comments. Are these features, what are some of these features that you'd like to be able to see replicated here? Okay, we're not necessarily saying we're trying to turn Edwardsburg into Paris, okay, or Chicago, or name another city, but what we're trying to do is maybe identify some of those important elements that we can build off of here. So again, just some outdoor seating. When we get into street amenities, everything from more of a traditional, classical to modern, okay? There's probably, if we were to raise hands, it would probably be, different variation here. So we want to get your input on that so we can hone in on some of the detail. Some of the street furniture. What does some of this look like? And, exercise equipment that you might find as you go in along a trail and so forth. And who's this character? Ben Franklin, right? So, I was introduced, we're from Michigan State, and those of you that have been to the MSU Union, there's a bronze statue of Sparty that people like to sit next to and get their picture taken. So, but the idea here is that there could be fun pieces of art that you could put within the downtown or areas that just make people smile and interact with the place, that can build off of the local history. This is something we see in perhaps Philadelphia, right? And just some of the different street furniture that you can find, and how the designs can be artistic as well as functional. Seating that can be art. Some practical seating options. Landscaping. Bike areas and storage. And or something that's more of the ride share. Signage that doesn't necessarily have to scream at the tallest level. It can be ground-based and still be functional and visible, yet also have some design aesthetic to it. Wayfinding, so that you're oriented as to where you are, and it can highlight some of the key aspects of the area. Signage along the corridor. We have commercial areas here, so is there opportunities for some of that ground signs? Other wayfinding, ways to highlight the local character and orient the pedestrian. All these are different options that we can look at. And then when we look at everything from traditional, there's probably some strong opinions about this. as well as this. You know, one's more traditional, you know, one's more modern. And so we want to be able to get some of that input in going forward. Something more like a strict commercial development that you might see. And then opportunities where there's some different uses that could be more in terms of a gallery or outdoor area that links a shopping center that has a pass-through, and so that provides maybe an opportunity for your farmer's market, other types of things that may take place throughout the year, or particularly this time of year. So all these are some different options. We heard a lot at the first meeting about buffering and along the railroad corridor. So what are some of the different fence options that might serve both for screening and our aesthetic? So we've given some different examples here of some different signage that might be there. We also heard about Pleasant Lake and the park, and maybe perhaps some opportunities. We were just down there tonight. Somebody was down there fishing. There's boats out there. So everything from maybe something that's a little less built up, with some opportunities in different times of the year, to something maybe where there's a boardwalk that's built, and something that perhaps is a little bit more elaborate with boardwalks. Maybe some natural features, stone natural features are built in. Again, we need to get your opinions on that as to what some of your preferences are, so we can hone in on some of the ideas. Then across the street from Lunkers, right? We heard there's the area there. What about perhaps maybe some boardwalk options? What might exist in that area? What are some of the possibilities? So these are just some examples from other areas. And then the different types of street lighting that we get into, different design, something that's more modern, something that's a little more pronounced, with plantings. And on street design, there's been the improvements that were done in the village area, right? There could be some of these areas that have both an opportunity for pedestrians, plus have a functional part, rain gardens, so it's helping with stormwater management, but also has an aesthetic part to it, and increasing safety for pedestrians. These are all some different opportunities that exist. Some of these might be right for the area here, some of them might not be. And then this idea of calming traffic or getting traffic to naturally slow down. How might you provide some design elements that make that happen? First of all, letting the motorists know where the pedestrian zones are. That's really key. Having the pavers that are both aesthetic and functional. Different opportunities there. What's called bump outs, so that the pedestrian feels safe in entering that traffic zone. So then that leads us to the design images, which we actually took some sites, like here on my right. These are some of the actual before and after images, and then similarly in the area on the other side of the wall. That's actually where we took some of the sites and tried to apply some of the design images before and after based on what we heard at that first meeting. So, and those were broken down into different zones. We call them Zone A, B, and C. And June Young's going to explain that a little bit further about the before and after images. So the bulk of this meeting is not done when we're done presenting here tonight, right? So we have the green sheets again that we want you to fill out. After we're done here in about 10 minutes, we want you to be able to get up and go around and start looking at these design images and identifying what you like or don't like about those, and reflecting and having that conversation. So with that, I'll turn it over to June.
Good evening. My name is June2019. How to pronounce my name correctly is not the matter for this meeting. So I'm an associate professor and program director for both landscape architecture and Master of Environmental Design programs in Michigan State University. So since I joined the Michigan State University in 2017, I spent my last 15 years either in Texas or California. So I never know there is an equipment in the world called snowblower. So again, like Wayne explained, we got some feedback and we did some design the recommendation, which is we think those 9 areas are most impactful areas to change the community, overall community built environment. And you may see some specific building style, or you may not like some specific plant, and you may not like a building color, something like that. But again, that's not the point we will we will discuss this evening. So keep thinking about the general atmosphere and what kind of some opportunities that our design image can bring to envision your future development. And then maybe you may find some design areas is right next to your house or right next to your favorite cafe. But again, the final the built environment will be on your hand based on our consultant. So again, I want to emphasize, we don't imply that will be the final design you will have in your town. So, like Wayne explained, we identified actually 10 areas, but today we prepared only 9 pairs of the image because we need more feedback to complete all the 10 pairs of the image. The first one, I believe you may recognize, this is the intersection between West Main and Case Street. So this is existing condition. There is a museum and then just a vacant lot, and you just finished a new sidewalk. But we think this could be a very iconic corner to represent the downtown area of this township. So we proposed one very low density mixed use development. And again, the Chase Bank, GameStop, we don't have any support. It just happened, right? So we don't imply that we should have a Chase Bank or GameStop on this corner. But just think about this mixed-use development. Mixed-use means first floor having some commercial, and the second, third floor could be residential. And then we added some signage and having some nice landscaping to provide more welcoming feeling to the downtown area. And intentionally, we recommend the building like this shape because we think this part can be part of some social gathering area, even though this could be a private area. But by opening to the street, so this open social gathering area could be built, embracing with a streetscape. And then we kept the existing the parking lot in behind of this building. And then this is another vacant lot located in the intersection of West Main and Lake Street. And what we propose is having one small restaurant, but we encourage to have some outdoor seating area because like one of your comments, if more people on the street and more people on outside, that will make a very safe and very viable community. And then we try to add some nice landscaping, and then we also try to clean up those the existing some unpleasant looking condition. And then the third area is, I believe everybody may recognize this area. This is chemical behind of the chemical bank on 62. So it's nearly a fully abandoned strip mall at current condition. And what we are proposing is we try to add more green spaces on the parking lot and then try to open this building. The reason is we identify there are a couple apartments complex behind of this building and they don't have an access to the street. So they should take a long detour. So, and I think that's the Height Village and the water place. So I don't remember the exact name. But by opening this area, we can put more people in it. For example, if it could be some grocery store or it could be some farmers market, weekly farmers market, then more people will be here. And then by opening this long strip mall, the center of this strip mall, the more people will secure their easy access between their residential area to the street. And then we have 3 examples, recommendations for our streetscape design. So again, this is right in front of nearby the McDonald's. So in this case, we don't find enough space because if we have green strip, we could buffer space, and that will provide a much safer feeling for pedestrians or bikers on the sidewalk. But the current condition didn't allow to add But so based on that current setting, our recommendation is we must have lighting for pedestrian, for nightscape, and then having some landscape here. And also, like Wayne introduced when he introduced the characteristic images. So we proposed a fence along the railroad because even though this is not a part of this commercial area, but by providing some more higher visual quality to blocking those unpleasant view can make this street as a place. So place making is not only for the setting or area, but if you meet your neighbor or your community members on very nice street, then that could be just your place for that moment. So that's kind of some idea to blocking the unpleasant view. And then another streetscape. So in this case, we can secure some nice buffer space. So we try to recommend having some low maintenance and native plant, and then those areas we call the buffer strip or bios where it will collect stormwater, or if there's some space you can pile up snow. And then another example of the streetscape. So again, we have some concrete patches, but again, this is not very safe because in the nighttime, without proper lighting, the drivers may not identify where is the driveway to get into parking lot, or whether the kids or pedestrian will be on the street. So what we propose is try to provide some buffer to get safer walking or biking condition. And then we try to ground the sign instead of having some tall sign following our case studies. But again, we need your opinion and your feedback by reviewing those the hard copy version of the recommendation design images. And lumpers, we see some very high potential, but we can just completely destroy and develop the new one. We could, we don't know, depending on the budget situation. So at this point, I don't know whether our design idea will be so fantasy or more cost effective. So we decided to keep the existing structure with different purposes. But if you are ready and if you want to share more ideas, then again, we can bring another alternative designs, completely destroy or maybe adding another building in front of the lumpers existing area. But what we propose is try to bring some more the green space in the parking lot, and then adding more windows for potential restaurants or groceries, and some inside indoor farmers market, something like that, because we see high potential of the location. And also the having some big parking lot may bring some another potential community event or some outdoor farmers market. So again, this is the current recommendation based on the current condition. But if you can share more different views in the later, then we will try to do our best to reflect for our final design recommendation. And this is the right next of the lumpers area. So again, there is no sidewalk. So even though we didn't change the existing structure of the lumpers dramatically, but almost every street and almost every destinations, we tried to introduce new sidewalk or safer sidewalk to connect, to make lumpers as kind of some curve of this proposed design master plan. So we added a sidewalk, and absolutely we need some lighting. And then again, the same thing, some low maintenance. It doesn't mean zero maintenance, but low maintenance, local, the biosphere theme of the street buffer. And this is the last pair. So you can see the lumpers. And this, I took this picture right in, next to that nearly abandoned street mall, and then right next to the new apartment complex. And already we see some unofficial track, so we confirmed, okay, this could be a great place to improve the overall connectivity from the main residential area to the lumpers. So what we are proposing is providing some boardwalk, because sometimes it will be super muddy, so you may not want to walk with a nice shoe or something like that. So we try to have boardwalk, but those areas more like natural, and it could be another potential asset as an open space. With the Pleasant Lake in this community. So Wayne will conclude his presentation. And again, we are looking for your comments and feedback. By reviewing the hard copy versions, it will give more details for our design recommendations.
Thank you.
So one thing to keep in mind is that these sites that were where we had the before and after imaging, they're meant to be representative samples of some of the things we heard. We're not suggesting that those property owners or et cetera should necessarily act on that. We haven't talked with the property owners, quite frankly. Some of them are here. So, but if they're meant to be examples, we want to be able to show what a real place in your community could look like with some of these ideas, okay? So keep that in mind as we go along, as ideas are moving forward. So now it's your meeting at this point, where we want you to write your comments down, get up and go around and take a look at those images, have some conversation with your neighbor, and post those comments down. That's really what's key at this point. We will be rotating around if you had some individual questions for us, or you wanted to sit down with us and have some specific ideas. But we want to take about the next 45 minutes, so please share your thoughts with those design images. That's the most important part of our meeting here tonight, is to get your input. So we're not going to necessarily reconvene at the end on this. It's to get the ideas down.